Yes!
I remember a while back when Bungie announced that they were doing a massive overhaul to Destiny 2's armor system and will be referring to it as Armor 2.0. And I'm not certain if I can speak for anyone else besides myself when I say that when I think of a 2.0 version of anything, I always think that it'd be the new and completely improved version. I was super excited to see what Armor 2.0 had in store after finding out that every armor perk in the game will be converted to mods with indefinite use. And the mere thought of all the armor build possibilities made this new revamped armor system something to seriously look forward to. Now, I fully realize that the main gripe/complaint about Armor 2.0 exists in the form of the armor elemental affinities. And instead of beating a dead horse, I want to talk about something a lot more concerning. For all of you that may not know, intellect, discipline, and strength were stats from Destiny 1 that dictated the cooldown speeds of your super, grenade, and melee abilities and found their way into Destiny 2 alongside the debut of Armor 2.0. Knowing that these three stats were finally going to exist in Destiny 2 was incredibly consoling, especially when you realize that there was no way to see the cooldown speeds of your abilities back in year 2. And I don't know when in the world Bungie snuck this in, but the character class abilities also have their own cooldown speed too. Warlock Rifts have a faster cooldown the higher your recovery stat is, and the same applies for that of the Titan's Barricade the higher your resilience is, and a Hunter class's dodge ability if you spec into the mobility stat. When Shadowkeep first released, I was disappointed with the fact that class abilities didn't have their own stat, meaning that the cooldown speed was a complete mystery. But instead of making an entirely new stat, Bungie cleverly lumped class ability cooldowns into the recovery, resilience, and mobility stats, and I like that. But the most concerning thing about Armor 2.0 are the stat numbers. And believe me when I say that there's little to no transparency or full acknowledgement of these numbers at all. From this point on, realize that I'm referring to legendary and exotic armor, and if need be, I specify. World drops and or armor from the general loot pool have the lowest stat numbers. I've seen them as low as the mid 40s and as high as the mid 50s, whereas armor that drops from all raids year 2 and back commonly drop armor in the high 50s and low 60s. Garden Salvation raid gear always drops with pinnacle levels, but from what I've seen, the stats aren't always guaranteed to be in the 60s like you would think. Powerful exotic drops can also drop with some pretty impressive stat totals too. For the longest time, the Peregrine Greaves was the only Titan exotic I was missing, and after Bungie stated that all exotic engrams would drop exotics you don't own, I went over to Xur, bought the Isochrona engram, and a pair of Peregrine Greaves with a stat total of 64 dropped for me. Now if I have to be 100% honest, this does not make sense if you think about it. Armor that drops from in-game and or rare sources should have some attributes that make it better than everything else in the game because it creates incentive to go for it. But at the same time, this method strongly contradicts the ideology of Armor 2.0 existing as the make whatever you want build with whatever cosmetics you want ideology. I mean, we were happy to know that all of the Eververse armor would be ornaments, but a lot of people feel that all armor in the game should be ornaments, which I agree and disagree with. I agree with it because it would be nice to have fully fledged control of my character's looks and different builds for different situations. But I disagree because this would ruin the uniqueness of raid gear or any kind of theme armor and maybe strike exclusive armor, if that ever finds its way into Destiny 2. As we got closer and closer to the release of the Shadowkeep DLC, I began to theorize how Armor 2.0 would work, and I ended up convincing myself that the Tier 12 builds would be returning. Now for those of you that have never played Destiny 1, I'll explain what Tier 12 means. In Destiny 1, points on armor contributed towards 3 different stats: intellect, discipline, and strength. Now each of these 3 stats were split up into 5 different tiers, and the higher the tiers were, the faster your ability cooldowns would be. Sounds similar to Armor 2.0, right? Well, the main difference is that it was possible to max out 2 stats and invest 2 tiers into a 3rd stat. But if you wanted to go for a jack of all trades build, you could get Tier 4 in all 3 stats. There was no in-game method of being able to tell if your armor was Tier 12 capable, so back then everybody would use third-party websites such as Destiny Item Manager, for example. Now, your armor would only be Tier 12 capable if both of its stats equated to a particular number. Each armor type had a max number, but provided that your armor's points were 95% of its highest possible number, it would still be considered Tier 12 capable. Helmets maxed out at 111, 99 for gauntlets, 147 for chest armor, 135 for boots, and 60 for class items, and 119 for artifacts. And if you haven't noticed, all of the armor my warlock is wearing isn't raid gear or anything exclusive or in-game oriented. I never really wore raid gear or anything like that in Destiny 1 because I always wanted my Guardian to look as unique as possible. But do you see why I'm bringing all of this up? In Destiny 1, I was truly able to make my Guardian look nice and have amazing armor stats, and none of my armor was difficult to obtain. But unfortunately, this isn't possible in Destiny 2. If your armor dropped from a quote-unquote nothing special source, it'll always have the lowest stat numbers. I suppose that Bungie's endeavor was to incentivize running raids, master difficulty nightfall ordeals, and Iron Banner to add more sense of endgame and significance to them. But the main issue that I have with this is that the armor that drops from these sources are not guaranteed to drop with high stat numbers, and it's incredibly inconsistent. At the time this video is going live, I ran a Pit of Heresy about 3 or 4 times, and the pinnacle armor piece that drops from the boss has always dropped in its 60s, but that's including the masterwork bonus of 12 points, since armor that drops from the Pit of Heresy's final boss is always fully masterwork. So if you subtract 12, the armor really has a stat total somewhere in the late 40s or middle 50s. I don't know a single person on this planet that would be excited to get a drop as pathetic as this, especially when it's a common issue in the game. Bungie could either be more transparent with how stat numbers work and what armor drops are capable of receiving higher stat totals, or simply take the D1 route and make it so that every armor piece can drop with a high stat number. In Destiny 2, I still wear armor with regular drop sources despite the fact that the stat numbers aren't that high. But if it was possible, I would be happy if my Guardians could have powerful builds and look nice at the same time. The most exciting news going into year 3 is when Bungie said that we will be able to obtain Armor 2.0 versions of the 2019 Solstice armor if you obtain the legendary version of it during the event. However, one of the biggest slaps in the face was when you realize that the Armor 2.0 Solstice armor has some of the most pathetic stats ever. Of course, nobody knew this when Shadowkeep first released because we didn't know a lot about Armor 2.0 at the time. It was a sad realization for those who grinded out the Solstice of Heroes armor back in 2018 because there was never a year 2 version of that armor. It's a really messed up realization for those who grinded the Solstice of Heroes armor for both 2018 and 2019 and have to deal with the realization that their time was wasted. Fortunately for me, I had a gut feeling that there wouldn't be a year 2 version of the 2018 Solstice armor, so I didn't grind for it, and I'm incredibly happy that I didn't. Now, I'm not sure how Bungie managed to make the same mistake twice, but I hope at one point in time they'll give us a courtesy increase to the Solstice of Heroes 2.0 armor, or simply allow us to reobtain it from the gunsmith with higher stat rolls. This, combined with the fact that all of the Solstice of Heroes 2.0 armor was locked to elemental affinities depending on character class, was a huge letdown. And being a Warlock player, I got the shortest end of the stick. The Warlock Solstice of Heroes 2.0 armor is all solar affinity, and I don't really use any of the solar affinity weapons, which consist of rocket launchers, SMGs, fusion rifles, and linear fusions, and auto rifles, if I'm not mistaken. I'm fully aware that Armor 2.0 is still very new, and maybe one of these days this system will improve. I just really hope that it doesn't take a long time for this to happen though. Anyways, that does it for this one, everybody. In the comment section, tell me if you prefer Armor 2.0 and the ability to add mods to your armor, or if you prefer the random perk approach of the year 2 armor. If you made it to the end of this video and enjoyed what you watched, do me a favor and thumb roast that like button until it turns blue. And if you're new to my neck of the woods, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you won't ever miss a video of the most elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1L HD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.